Hey guys, Brian here with Forest Farm Project. Today we're at Mom and Dad's house, and this is their existing house, and we're somewhat prepping it for sale in between work and whatnot. And one of the things we're doing is upgrading the outdoor spigots. The ones they have on the house are shot. They're the originals from 1970 when the house was built. You can repack them and the internals, and it lasts for a while, but it doesn't hold up. So we're going to put new ones on. We don't do anything dealing with copper. We always use Pex because it's easy. We don't have to sweat anything. We don't have to worry about any flux. The one downside to the Crimps, the Pex system, it's not really a downside, is the cost of the Crimp tool. These run about $140, I think, but we're plumbing our houses. We're doing all our own maintenance for plumbing. It pays for itself the first time we use it. We don't have to hire somebody to come do this. So this is a Zurn Crimp tool for Pex, and it's phenomenal. It'll crimp anything. We've done 1/2-inch Pex all the way up to 1.25 Pex. This doesn't care. All it does is get a certain pressure. When it gets pressurized to the right amount of pressure, a little blue light lights up, lets you know you're at the right pressure point. So really good tool to have. Okay, might as well make the work easy. We're going to be under the house doing this, so I'm going to do everything I can up here, which involves assembling our outdoor spigot. So I'll show you how we do that. To do this process, you take your Pex, slide your Pex crimp ring on it, and then before you get to where you crimp the ring, you want to line up your fitting and see how far in the fitting is going to go into the pipe, because you don't want to crimp down here on the end. That wouldn't do you any good. It would not give you a secure crimp. You want to leave about 1/8 of an inch of Pex at the end, and with, I'm fortunate there's writing on here, I can see that I want to crimp about in between the two words here. So I'm going to slide this in. I'm going to slide my crimp down here, and then I'm going to get my handy dandy crimp tool, and I'm going to turn this up so you guys can see the light go blue. And there it goes blue. Nothing to it. Pop it loose. And now, when we go to assemble this under the house, we're going to use the tubing cutter, cut off the existing copper pipe once we've measured roughly how far in this is going to come so that I know where to cut it off. Once we cut that off, I'm going to insert the Sharkbite connector onto the copper. Dad is going to pull the old copper pipe and spigot out of the wall. He's going to slide the new one in, and so when I see that, for instance, let's say this is where it lines up, I've got excess pipe here, I'll take my pipe cutters and I will cut the Pex off where it needs to line up with the Sharkbite. Dad will then put pressure on it, slide it in, lock it in place, and we're done. Once this thing's secured inside, all you got to do is run 2 screws into the brick or mortar, or Tapcons preferably, quick and easy, and it's locked down, not going anywhere, and you got a brand new spigot that should work for a long time. Generally speaking, we use a large copper tubing cutter because, one, it's easier to spin because it's a larger unit, and with this big knurled knob on the end, it's a lot easier to tighten the cutting wheel up against the copper. But if you're in a tight space, they do make a micro copper tubing cutter that will fit in very tight spaces, and it just has a little knob on the end, and it draws the head down towards the wheels. So if you've got a tight fit, this is a really good option. If you can only have one, which they're not very expensive, but if you can only have one, or like I do, I keep this on my truck, just get the micro because it'll work everywhere that this big one will, but it won't cut all the copper that this will because, again, it's micro. It's only a small area. This will cut a much larger piece of pipe. But these are both great tools to have, very inexpensive. Okay guys, I didn't make you trudge through the 75 feet under this low house. Since you're in a tiny camera, you get to come through the crawl space vent. Makes it a lot easier for us. But this is the pipe we're going to be replacing, or cutting off and splicing with this wonderful Pex.
And it goes out to here. That spigot right there.
And we know we've got enough Pex on here to get us past this column. So I'm going to cut the copper off as close to the column as I can, and then when Dad pushes the new pipe through the wall, we will adjust accordingly with our Sharkbite connector. And with the Sharkbite connectors, there is a little plastic plug inside the middle of it right here that you have to have in there for the Pex because it reinforces the Pex wall of the tubing and helps force it out against the outside of the cone. A lot of people pull them out for the copper because it's not required. The copper is a rigid entity, so it's going to hug the outside of that just fine. but you got to have it for the Pex. When I cut this off, I'm going to leave enough room to work this Sharkbite in so that we can slide this on and then slide the new Pex into it. So it's a really simple system. It's basically like a Chinese finger cuff. It works really well, and it makes splicing all this stuff from one version to another super simple. They're a little pricey, but well worth the money. Before I cut this off, I'm going to go ahead and clean it. Emery cloth is probably your best option for cleaning it. We've got steel wool. We don't have any emery cloth on hand, but you just want to polish the surface, give it a nice clean surface to mate to. So I am just going to work my way around. Tight quarters under here. Most crawl spaces are not meant for large people or tall people. Just trying to make a nice clean surface for the Sharkbite to hold on to. And there we go. Much cleaner than it was. Now let's cut that bad boy off. I find it a lot easier to clean the copper off without having cut it. Then you don't have a sharp edge to deal with. It's ready to go and just a nice smooth surface. When you're cutting copper pipe, you want to just lightly snug up to it and start spinning in the direction of the opening, and then continue to snug it as you go around. You don't want to over tighten it because you will force it to cut it prematurely and it might give you a rough edge. Make a full turn each time before you tighten it any, and just lightly tighten as you go. You will feel it start to spin easier, and when it starts to spin easier, that means, hey, tighten it up a little bit more. And there we go. As you saw, we had a little bit of water coming out. We already turned the water off. Forgot to mention, you definitely want to turn the water off before you start cutting pipes. Otherwise, you're going to have some fun. And there we go. That's cut free. And now, if you want to look outside.
Hold on. Okay.
Now Dad's going to pull it out of the wall.
Give me the new one.
And he's going to take that new one, run it into me.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to need to chisel this a little bit.
Okay. We want the spigot to fit tight to the wall. As you can see, the Pex connector is hitting the mortar, so we're going to have to chisel the mortar out so that it will fit flush to the wall. We're just going to take an old beater screwdriver and a hammer and have at it.
That should do it.
Okay, as you guys can see, these pipes overlap. That ain't gonna do. So, we're gonna put our Sharkbite connector on the copper. You wanna push it in until it seats well, and you feel that wall. Once you've hit that wall, then I can see I wanna cut it off about the shoulder with this Sharkbite connector on the Pex, and we should be able to insert it from the outside, and we'll be good to go. And pray that it works. Okay, Dad's gonna push it in.
Looking good out here.
Okay, that's all there is to it. And now we got a nice new water spigot outside. Just got to screw it down and it's secure and ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to drill this at a little bit of an angle so I get a little more bite in the mortar away from the hole that is in the middle of the mortar. And I'll put that first screw in so that it locks me down in that position. Okay. Make sure you drill deep enough that the screw will go in and not bottom out. Now, those screws have it nice and tight. It won't spin when you turn it on and off. It's locked in, not going anywhere. Okay, so the Tapcons we used were 3/16 inch diameter, 2 1/4 long, and it tells you on here that you need a 5/32 masonry bit so that you can drill to anchor with these. And running this 5/32 drill bit, you need to make sure you're using a Milwaukee drill. They work really well.
Now it's good to go, and we've got a nice new spigot outside. Hope you guys enjoyed this quick process. It's really simple, really easy project for you to do at home. Improve your life when you're outside having to deal with old spigots. They can be a nightmare and a bear to work with, so these are going to hold up for a long time. Have a good one, guys.